And we are back. It is the 9 o'clock hour, and Jennifer's going to hold over and help us out with our next guest, which is Hector Bravo. That's such a great name for someone who's in the military. Is that really your last name?
That's my real middle name.
Ah, I see. So you are a corrections officer retired after 16 years.
Corrections lieutenant, resigned before my retirement age of 50.
Okay. And before that, you served our military. Thank you for your service to our country. And you spent how many years in Iraq?
13 months in Iraq.
Okay. So you're a war veteran.
Yep.
And you drove all the way from San Diego so that you can come and tell us what is going on.
Yeah.
And Jennifer...
Did we say branch? What branch?
Army.
Army. Mm-hmm. And so Jennifer said, oh my gosh, I just saw this on her phone, which I was going to mention when we came on to introduce you. And that is Gavin Newsom just put a gentleman, I can't even...
gentleman.
I'm being kind.
No.
He's a criminal.
We don't need to be kind.
Okay,
to
he's a
these
gangster.
Animals.
He's a gangster.
Yes, he put a convicted criminal. He slashed a sentence from 162
years to
8 years. This is for a man who fired into a vehicle knowing that family members were inside, paralyzed a young girl. She was expecting to have this thug animal in prison for the rest of his life. And
she said she was hoping for at least 50 years.
Sounds like he's out.
Now he's out, and he is now in the Department of Safety for California, and he's got a picture with Gavin Newsom both smiling. And here's what we're going to do with you, Hector. You're going to tell us, after being a corrections officer, a lieutenant, for 16 years, that this is nothing. This is normal.
Yeah, it's a norm, for sure. I'm not shocked. I'm not surprised. I've been watching it.
Well, so you're saying the norm is to release these violent criminals or these convicted felons so early?
Everybody.
Lifers,
life without parole. That's a new norm right now.
Do you know why? Like, why is it the new norm suddenly?
Well, it's been years in the making.
Mm-hmm.
I joined the department in 2006.
Mm-hmm.
Right when you came out of the military.
Yeah, I got out in 2005, joined the California Department of Corrections in 2006, sent into state prison, and it was overcrowded at that time. But to me, that was my norm, because it was normal to see the bunk beds in the day room, the housing units, the bunk beds in the gym. That was what the overcrowding was about. After a couple of years of that, they let everybody go home.
With ankle monitors?
No, at that time, they were paroling. And as a prison guard, I'm like, well, this is cool in here because we're not so outnumbered. But I know that now that those inmates are now out on the streets where my loved ones are at.
Right.
This was back in 2009. AB 109, the whole realignment, Prop 57. This is when the weird stuff happened in 2009 and 2010.
Yeah, go back a little bit to AB 109.
Oh, yeah.
Tell us about that.
Well, we are here now because of a result of everything that has transpired. Pretty much the whole time I've been in the department, I've watched everything from the inside. AB 109 was the whole realignment you had.
Of corrections,
parole. A lot of parole agents got kicked back to the prisons or prisons because they never worked there. A lot of young correctional officers or new correctional officers got laid off, pink slips. Mm-hmm. We had the 15% furloughs, pay cut across the board. California Highway Patrol didn't get touched. Mm-hmm. How convenient it was the governor's bodyguards.
Well, because they are now the state police. They became the state police in 2000 or 1999, because my ex-fiance who passed away, it was a CHP officer, and they had just rolled over, and he went on the department in, I think it might have been 2000. It might have been 95, 97. Something like that. Somewhere in there is when they became state police.
So the governor at that time was Arnold Schwarzenegger through all of this stuff.
Interesting. And he signed off on AB 109.
This is when all that, I can't say who exactly it was. I can't remember. I was new.
But that made sense because that's when our car registrations went quadrupled. The car registration on my Porsche went from, $400 a year to $1,200. So they were looking to make money and cut costs, and they did it through the prison systems and through what you're saying. So when you joined you came out of the military, decided you wanted to be a correction officer versus a regular police officer. So I have two questions. One, why correction? And two, what was your expectation in corrections?
I'm from a small town, Brawley, California. So the police there are not liked upon. It's a small town, so they got nothing better to do than speeding tickets and tinted windows. Unlike a big city where they actually have real crime.
Yeah.
So that wasn't ever in my interest. Now, my father was a correctional officer, at the prison that we worked together. So
Oh, wow.
there's 2 prisons down there, and they all make a lot of money, the COs. So it's kind of, following your father's footsteps, and you be having the house, the big car, and all the
Right.
fancy stuff. It was just a goal.
Right.
And what was my mindset was that, hey, I'm going to be on a prison yard with big, bad gangsters, and we may have to fight, and contraband, stuff from the movies, and being young and eager and a go-getter kind of seemed right up my alley.
And then having had your dad as a correction officer, did you have some idea of what you were walking into, or did he just keep that at work, kept work at work and home at home?
Absolutely kept work at work.
So you were here you are. So you were what?
22.
22, just out of the military, served in Iraq, and you're going into the prison system going, I got this. And what did you realize you got?
Hoping I got this. Well, at that time, prison was still prison. At that time, it was still no funny business, no weird stuff, nothing
So what's
crazy.
the funny, weird stuff what's going on?
As that comes on?
Yeah.
Well, I mean, to be frank, the whole transgender
Right.
fiasco, everything that was happening out on the streets was happening inside a prison. And I think it's even might be some type of law here in California where, you got to address them by the pronouns or by the genders that they want to be addressed.
Jen's favorite
Oh my
subject.
God.
And you get written up if you don't, right? So that was a learning curve for a lot of individuals because, hey, like, you're forcing us now to call this man a female when we didn't grow up like that, and or
You're in a men's prison.
It's confusing. Wait till I get there. Oh my!
So back up, Hector. What was it like then, back in the good old days
Yeah.
of actual corrections?
Right.
What were you seeing? You're just seeing
It was
meals. You're
it
seeing
was-
yard workouts. What are you
it
seeing?
was inmates versus COs, guards, and the administration somewhat had our backs. I mean, they did have our backs, but at that time they were not connected to headquarters Sacramento because nothing was on computer yet. In about 2012, everything went to a centralized computer, and that's when things changed. Headquarters Sacramento took over every single prison and began to make puppets of every single warden, and people started selling their souls and burning staff members. And the whole political thing that's happening on the streets happened in there. But I watched that transformation in there.
And was the goal, was this changing people into puppets? Do you see that the goal was somehow into this like reforming corrections away from actual punishment and deterrence to something else?
There was a lot at play. There was a lot of lawsuits, and California or CCR bended at the knee at the lawsuits. But they went from one extreme to the other. There was allegations of staff misconduct, which at certain prisons there absolutely was, right?
So what is considered staff misconduct, though?
Like they said the gladiator days in Corcoran Shoe Prison where they were setting up fights between inmates, where the FBI stepped in and, that may or may not have happened. I think it was proven that it did happen. Mm-hmm. They were placing bets.
Because I have a thing. I don't think a lot of our listeners are really keen to know what was going on in state prisons because these are state prisons.
Correct.
You're
State
not
prison.
you're not a federal. You're a state prison. That means state of California.
Nobody has heard what's actually happening there.
So what's happening? Give us the lowdown.
All right.
I mean, you wrote a best-selling book.
I did. So what you got to understand is during those gladiator days, there's no doubt that Sacramento headquarters put out information. Hey, start mixing these inmates, which are enemies. Mixing Sureños from the south, gang members with the north, right? They're going to fight. I don't have to tell you that they're going to fight. We know they're going to fight.
Right.
The bad part is I think they were placing wagers and bets. That's where it becomes an issue, right?
Right.
So as a lieutenant, recently, they started mixing the protective custody inmates with the general population inmates.
Okay, so that would be protective custody could be someone who is
Like
maybe
a child
law enforcement.
molester, a law enforcement, child molester, rapist, a
Maybe
snitch.
Derek Chauvin.
Correct.
The George Floyd killer. They put him in general population.
Yep, and he got stabbed,
and
he
then
was
he
in
got
federal.
stabbed.
They were telling us to do it on the line. I was a lieutenant. And, of course, they would riot, and I would have to use force to quell it. But then they would say, don't lock them up. Let them keep fighting. Let them keep killing each other. And I'm like, well, wait a minute. At some point, we got to stop this. Like, the problem, they're blaming us.
So the kickback was that you have to do this, but when it came to responsibility, they blamed you and
Facts.
said, "Oh, it's your fault because
100%.
you shouldn't have allowed it."
That from COVID, you had all the inmates dying of the mixing and going to the hospital. That was the higher ups, captains, associate wardens, chief deputy wardens, and wardens doing these incompetent is, wow, putting it lightly with these guys. mixing them when we kept telling them, just leave everybody in place. It doesn't make sense to just start moving, shuffling everybody around, and then they blamed us.
So what do you think their intent was? Was their intent to kill the population off so that they didn't have to pay to keep it incarcerated? What was their end game?
It's kind of like somebody who's never had power and is hungry on power and titles, and they want to feel important. They want to make something up just to make something up and leave their mark, leave their name on something. There's just a bunch of incompetent decisions over and over and over and over again. But it's dangerous. People's lives are at risk. To include staff members, inmates, it's all bad. I was a lieutenant. I couldn't stomach that. That's unethical.
Wow. Unethical. Here you are. Yeah, but again, this is what we were talking about earlier, Jennifer, is that you're in law enforcement. You swore in to uphold the Constitution of the United States.
Twice.
Yes, you did it as a man who served in the military and the army, and you did it as a lieutenant in the corrections facility. And these prisoners, whether they're there because they committed a crime or whatever, they're convicted, they're in prison.
Facts.
Okay, so whether you're innocent or not is irrelevant. Your job is to make sure that they serve their time in a way that is going to be to the best of their ability to survive.
Right. Yeah. We have an obligation.
Of their ability to survive, not your ability to make sure they don't survive by mixing and doing things is going to cause them harm.
Was that the
Correct.
reason we're talking about your book? You wrote a book called Operation
Jennifer's
Yard
looking up the book.
Recall. I am, because
Yeah.
I want to tell everybody this title, Operation Yard Recall, an in-depth guide to working inside a correctional facility by Hector Bravo. So did you write this book in order, like as a whistleblower, or truly as a guide?
So you want to talk about whistleblower. So leaving the department was not my first option.
Okay.
We went through a bad dictatorship in 2020 with a warden, Marcus Pollard, and his chief deputy warden. It was bad. It was so bad that they had the backing of Sacramento headquarters. The only thing I could relate it to is Hitler. That's the only thing, and I was his right-hand man. I got chosen to be his public information officer, his right-hand man.
Wow.
So I had a seat right there. And the stuff I observed, watched, people filing EEO complaints, going nowhere on deaf ears.
What is that?
Equal opportunity for people's discrimination fell on deaf ears. Our Office of Internal Affairs for the department, complete sham, complete scam. Everybody's in on it.
Wow.
Yeah, absolutely. Hostile work environments.
Nobody cared.
No, they were covering it up. Oh, let me tell you something. So basically, every option that every tool utilized to protect an employee was the DFEH, Department of Fair and Employer Housing. I filed on that. Nothing. So ultimately, I'm going to tell you guys right now, there was a captain on Bravo Yard, Richard J. Donovan Correctional Facility, incompetent captain. The warden loved him because he was incompetent, a yes man, and a dummy. He made captain in 9 years, which is unheard of. He was book smart, not street smart.
Okay.
He befriended a Mexican mafia member. Okay, Mexican mafia is probably the largest, most powerful prison gang in the California Department of Corrections. Somehow, some way, he brought him down from Northern California, High Desert State Prison, to San Diego. They did some backdoor deal, which is weird. I've never seen that in my career. This was 2020. As a result of the overfamiliarity, being buddies, you got a captain being a friend.
Isn't that like against the rules?
It's against the law.
As a matter of fact.
So he created a environment that was extremely dangerous on that yard, which we knew a train wreck was about to happen. And guess what happened?
Train wreck?
In 2020, that inmate, that Mexican mafia member, along with his
Groups,
I was going to call them goons. They were goons. Got weapons and brutally attacked and attempted to murder officers. And I responded to that. And you can see the blood on the ground. You can see that the dude got stabbed in the teeth. Teeth got in his face. It's a miracle he survived.
When you say got weapons, what weapons did they
homemade
have?
shanks.
That was my next
Shanks.
question. So what did they make the shanks out of?
Metal, steel, their desk, carts from the culinary, from the kitchen. Steel. Anything steel.
And how? So was there another backdoor deal that gave them the ability to get those things?
Oh, inmates are going to be inmates. They're going to find. They're very creative. They're not dummies.
They have a lot of time.
They
to
have
be
a lot of
creative.
Time to be creative.
No, like weapons are not. They're pretty easily accessible in a prison.
Okay, so they made these weapons and they came after officers.
Yes.
And how many officers? And did anyone
like
end up
6
passing
went to
away?
the hospital. Nobody passed away. One was in ICU, on life support, which I went to the hospital 6 different times to go see him.
And he survived?
He survived, and he medically retired.
Is he okay now?
Yes. But a lot of officers medically retired off of that one incident with post-traumatic stress disorder, injuries. Just it was all bad.
And how many of the prisoners were injured?
Like a handful, right? But nothing, no funny business. We didn't do any extra, and I can attest to that because I responded as a crisis response team commander. So I was the commander for the SWAT team and the public information officer. I was wearing two roles, two hats, and yeah. I had
so
to
what do you
ensure-
guys? So you've got how many gang members with weapons?
6, 7, 8.
So there's 6, 7, 8.
Oh,
a half a
and
dozen.
they took the officers' batons away and smashed the officers' face with their own baton.
That was my next question. What weapons do officers have?
Pepper spray, and a baton, which both use of force tools options got taken away from the officers and utilized against them.
Okay, so they have no firearm?
In the gun tower, I know the correctional officer up in the tower, he fired a warning shot that stopped the incident.
But the officers on the yard have no duty weapon.
Correct.
So how long did this go on for?
Minutes, but in minutes, I mean,
But
minutes
see,
seem
this
like
is
hours.
why but this is why I brought that up, because in a situation like that, you've got probably 5 guards, 6, 7.
You have 5.
Okay, so you had 5 guards,
But once they put the radio call over, the whole prison's coming. Here, the cavalry is coming.
and they're locking down. The prison's locked down, and cavalry's coming. But in the time it takes you to get there, they've done significant amount of damage to these officers.
Significant.
And that's what people don't understand is you officers have your training. These people are used to killing people with their bare hands. They're used to using whatever's necessary
Yeah,
to kill people.
they study war.
Right. That's not your job. That's not what you do. You don't go in and study war.
I personally did because I'm ahead of the game. I'm ahead of the curve. But
right. Because you served in the military.
Yeah, but not these new cops. No,
but that's not part of their training.
Correct. So it gets worse. So here we are all thinking, first everybody's highly upset at that captain, to put it lightly. Well, immediately that warden covers that up. Immediately. Sweeps it under the rug. And we're like, no way. No way. So since I was a public information officer, headquarters, the public information officer for secretary, press secretary for headquarters, she sends me an email or calls me and says, we need you to write up So as a result of that, there was an associate warden that retired and did a blistering email and aired out the dirty laundry on his way out. That lady at the top said, hey, we need you to type up a press letter refuting all these allegations. And here I am reading. I'm naive. I'm like, refuting? Why refute? And then I started, my eyes open up to the corruption. I'm getting chills thinking about it. I'm like, oh no, why would they do this, right, at the highest levels?
Right.
5 minutes later, she's like, oh, no worries. Chief Deputy, whatever, Kimberly Seibel already typed it up. Yeah, she shot it out to the news. It says, headquarters has full support of the leadership at Richard J. Donovan Correctional Facility. All these allegations are unsubstantiated. And I'm like, in 5 minutes, they came to a conclusion. Excuse me.
Oh, yeah, we're on live air. It's okay.
We have a delay. You're all right. You're good.
We have a delay.
In 5 minutes? Right, because they will burn a cop in 5 minutes.
Yeah.
So that's what opened my eyes, how high the corruption was. That's headquarters, Sacramento.
Wow.
So check this out. Those inmates went to ADSEG, the hole. And guess what our warden decided to do?
Let them out.
No, bring them barbecue plates. Bring them barbecue plates from the streets as a form of rehabilitation. And I told him, sir, you do not want to do this. You do not want to do this. And he told me, if you don't like it, you can go back to the line. He told me that twice. He didn't think I was going to take him up on his offer. Because I don't care about titles, power, positions.
You just want to be ethical.
Okay,
and do your job.
so you wanted him. So you didn't want to see that show of favoritism, right, to the guys that were put there. But so tell us why, though. When you said to him, you don't want to do this.
Why?
Oh, because of the morale.
Yes.
The shot of the morale to the troops. I mean, how are you going to, what kind of message are you sending to the inmates and to the officers?
Mm-hmm. You can beat up officers and we're gonna reward you. It's just kind of
barbecue.
So
this is what I told the
we're
warden.
gonna give you barbecue, your favorite thing in the whole world.
So I told the warden, we had a one-on-one conversation. I said, hey, sir, before I came up here, I told myself I was never going to sell my soul. He's like, you're not selling your soul. I'm not asking you to hand deliver the barbecue plates. I'm going to deliver them.
It's one and the same.
There's a big difference, son.
There's a big difference. You're not
word.
handing it to him. I am, so therefore it's okay. No, the whole idea is, this is what poor leadership looks like.
Beyond poor leadership. I was fortunate to have great leadership in the Army, and this is what motivates me to do what I do is I live in their honor because the majority of them were killed in action.
And again, what were your years in the Army?
2002 to 2005.
Okay. All right.
So that was that big thing that I just let you guys know about. That corruption. They attempted to murder 2 cops. The warden covered it up. And rumor has it that the district attorney from San Diego reached out to the warden and said, hey, we're going to give you any asset that you want, any of our resources. And he's like, nah, we're cool. And
we're cool.
And didn't utilize anything, which I think they might be under some type of little investigation as a result of that.
Now, how long ago did this happen?
2020. It's in August. You can Google it.
So
August
still,
2020. It's still new. It's only 3 years old. Can how long? Attempted murder. Is there a statute of limitation on that, Jennifer?
Yes, there is, and I'm certain that I'm not sure of it, since criminal law is not my area.
They went to court. They were charged and convicted. I believe they were convicted, but it was just...
What are they going to convict it of? They're going to have more barbecue in the hole?
It's crazy, huh?
Here, we're going to convict you and we're going to give you more. But instead, no, better yet, you know what we're going to do? We're going to send you on your way and give you an ankle bracelet.
Yeah, let's get back to the people they're releasing. Right?
Yes, that's why I brought
earlier
that back.
in the break we were talking about how you said listeners are going to be shocked at the criminals that are being released from prisons in the state of California.
That are on the street.
I mean,
anywhere.
You think of a crime, they're out. They're out. By the numbers, by the thousands, by the hundred of thousands. I'm telling you, I've been here since 06, 2000, and I've seen this. I mean, it's been continuous. They've closed down prisons. They've closed down Susanville. CCI Tehachapi is about to close down.
And what about Men's Central?
That's not state.
That's county. Okay.
We can have Brian calling on that.
So one thing right before I left, okay, I was a lieutenant on Alpha Yard, and I hear somebody say, hey, call this inmate in. The governor wants to talk to him. So my ears perk up. I'm on my desk. Let me hear what this is about, man. I never had the governor try to talk to me. So he comes back there, and it turned out it was the governor's secretary or OT or one of the people that works for the governor. So the dude comes in. He's an older inmate, and I'm just a fly on the wall sitting there. She's like, hey, I'm so proud. I'm so happy. This is going to be great for us. This is a great program we're doing. We know you're going to prove us right. And he's like, oh, I am going to prove you right. I'm grateful for this opportunity. So I'm like, what are they talking about? Mm-hmm. So she's like, yeah, don't let your family members know. Yeah, we still got to do the paperwork, and then you'll be out of here. So they leave, right? I'm like, well, what's that about? Like, oh, he's an inmate serving life in prison. They're going to let him go free.
He's a lifer.
They're going to let him go free and put an ankle monitor on him. He's going to serve the rest of his sentence out on the streets with an ankle monitor. I'm like, okay, well, that's new to me. Let me at least look up on the computer to see what he did. He stabbed the old lady to death.
Oh my gosh.
He really did.
So he stabbed an older person to death, an older woman, and he got life in prison, no possibility of parole, and they're
I don't know if it was LWOP, no possibility of parole. He got life, There's a difference between
life
life and LWOP.
Life without parole.
Okay. So he got life. Mm-hmm. How much had he already served?
Oh, he had been in 25 years.
Oh, well, that was remember Gavin Newsom was saying that he wanted to, anyone over 20 years, we should let them out early.
Oh, you guys, I just looked this thing up. It's called the elderly eligibility for early parole.
Well, there's so many. There's that one. Mm-hmm. There's if you committed a crime prior to the age of 23 or 25, you get out.
You get out earlier, like the guy that did 8 years and should have had 162. That's now working for safety.
And I talked to a lot of convicted, former incarcerated. To their defense, there's guys that have totally went in there, rehabilitated, changed their mindset, and are out thriving in society. The problem with CDCR in California is it's a free-for-all. They've let everybody out. And even those former incarcerated are like, yeah, Hector, we agree with you. There's some people that need to be in prison.
They need to
stay in there for the rest of their life. Mm-hmm. 100. And it's just a free-for-all. The floodgates are open.
Wow. Wow. Well,
if this were more of an issue, my gosh, this should just be more of a public safety issue.
Well, but how can we have a public safety issue when we have a formerly incarcerated individual that Gavin Newsom let out that should have been in for 162 years, that got 8 years and is now serving for public safety? Mm-hmm. He's working as a director of public safety for the state of California, and he's 28 years old. I mean, I'm not saying that we can't rehab prisoners like you just said, Hector. But if you don't know who you're
Correct.
rehabbing, you're just like, hey, let's just throw it on the wall and see what sticks. What do we got? We got
I'll
a
tell
sticky
you what you
pasta.
have. You have shootouts with the police officers out on the street.
That
which
is
I've
all of
watched
this
over
is a
and over again.
slap in the face to law enforcement, and it's a slap in the face to victims.
Yes. Hang on. We're coming to a hard break. We're going to be right back. This is the Los Angeles Hispanic Republican Club on AM 870 The Answer. David Hernandez is on vacation, and you've got Jeffi at the mic along with Jennifer Kennedy and our guest, Hector Bravo, and we'll be right back. You need to come back because we are not done with this exciting segment.